yes, go to your mom, but where is that daughter going to get a man's advice? You know, those are things that we don't even think. And I really like right now in my school, what I do is I bring the fathers and I sit them down with their daughters and the teacher. And I say, let's look at the report form. How is she doing? And really, for them to start seeing, oh, I can actually be part of this kid's life. And of course, when you have teenagers, they have, I don't have a teenager, so that's a very innocent answer that I'm going to give. Kids, I interact with them. I mean, my girls in high school, they come up with questions. Sometimes I just listen. And I'm like, what do you think? And they go around their answers, and then I'm like, what do you think is right? Sometimes giving them leading questions, which I think our culture just fear having an adult girl around. You know, we don't know how to deal with them. But they are amazing knowledge that these young women have. I've learned that a lot from my own girls, because we've always, even when you try to talk to your mom, I mean, it's as if these issues go, but girls want people to listen to them, and we have given that to boys, because you'd always see a father and their son out there. What do you think? They're playing or they're doing what? But the girls are left out, and that's what I really encourage parents to sit down and just talk to them. Go to the farm or go do something, go and, yeah, we're in the city, go have some tea and coffee together. But talk, because then listen, and you will learn a lot. You'll be amazed.
Wow, now we've got questions. Just as I was getting ready for mine.
I wonder whether you've been able to work with any male activists on any of these issues who are speaking to boys and men, because I think we women can work on these issues, but if we don't get the men on board, there's only so far we can go. So I wonder if you've encountered any male activists who are being effective on these issues.
I work with men all the time. The chairman of my board is a male. From the community, I have 4 of them. But I also work with the activists who are on the field. I have a program where I call them change makers, and we meet once a month. And we talk about the issues, how we are going to deal with them, what is the approach. And that's why we actually started doing the training for boys and girls. It's because you can't just be focusing on, this is all family issues. Let's all sit down and talk about it. Yes.
You mentioned that female genital mutilation was underground, and that it's really a hidden practice. But what I wanted to find out is, when it comes to early marriages, what is the stance from the government as well as the community you come from?
The early marriages it's of course it's against the law in Kenya, and when it is done now, I think there is no follow-ups. So who is to report that a girl was married? And if it happens in the villages, who is to implement that law? So that's where the challenge becomes. And there is a lot, the law is good to have, but if there is no an implementation mechanism, it tends to fail. We in Kenya, we expect the chiefs, who is the local and the rankings of the government, to implement that law. But that chief comes from that community that believes girls should be married early. How is he going to implement that? So there is a disconnect. So what we are encouraging now is to really do a lot of civic education and a lot of also education of the stakeholders, because you will go and report a case, especially with the police, and they will look at you like, oh, she took herself there. What proof do you have that she was given away? Instead of them helping you help the girl, they start attacking you. So there's really a lot of, and that's some of the programs we have, is to work with the stakeholders and really work with them, because it still goes on. Right now the biggest issue is rape, defilements, early pregnancy, and when a girl gets pregnant, of course the father is like, now she's pregnant, what do you expect me to do? Let her get married. But now at least the government allows the girl to go back to school. She can go back to school, she can stay in school when she's pregnant until she gives back and comes back to school. So there's those balances that we have to work with. But I think the biggest issue is the implementation of the law.
I'm Tembi Kumalo. I'm over here. Maybe you've kind of partly answered the question that I wanted to ask, which is there an opportunity for the custodians of the culture to sit at the table with the advocates of empowerment so that they can have a real conversation about what goes on in a girl's reality, which includes school, church, relatives, family, because it's easy for us in this setting to advocate for empowerment and emancipation and to want all those things. But when those young ladies graduate from Arundel and they're sitting with their aunties, and the aunties are saying, you're 27 and you're still not married, this is a problem. The reality, you know, that's their reality. And that's society. So where do we get the intersection and the hope of actually marrying the feminist movement with cultural reality?
In a more smaller scale, it's something that is possible. Because this is, as I always encourage people, it's conversations. When you talk about pressure, I was married when I was 30 years old, and my younger sisters were already married, so you can imagine what the pressure was. Not just from my mom, but the aunties and who and who and who. But they forget, I think when we have role models, it also helps, because then they can always say, oh, there's such a daughter of so, she's okay, she got married, because their biggest problem is, will you be able to have children? That is something we've ingrained in our minds, that a woman, children. You know, a woman equals to children, and if they don't get children, that's not a woman. So we have to change that mindset, but the more they see as many girls who stay longer without getting married, it becomes a norm. It becomes, oh, it's not just one daughter, it's many others. So it will take time. We might not even need to have those conversations, but as I focus on my girls, I always empower them, because those pressures will come, whether we have those talks or not. But how empowered is the girl to say, this is my focus, this is what I want to do, this is what I want to achieve. And once she has achieved, despite all the pressure, she will become an example and she will become a role model. And that I can tell you from my own experience of my own community and so many others in Kenya and around the world. It's like if one makes it, they all say, oh, it's not actually bad. Oh, she can actually get married. Now they like the idea that I have a job, and the one that I never thought that I drive a car, and they're like, she's driving a car. She can take her mom. Like the mom is like, no, oh, my daughter is driving. You know, the simplest thing, you're like, really, that's what people get excited about? But those little things that we do, it does change their minds. So maybe I didn't answer exactly how you want, but those small discussions can make. But when now you start thinking about a larger scale of larger scale. It's another discussion of how do you bring the stakeholders, how do you, and we always leave the elders from including them in the discussions. We go aside and we talk about how we want to attack them, and they don't feel that they're part of it. So it's us to really include them in those discussions, and they will own it.
Thank you, Kakenya. My name is Emmanuel Gasa. I'm a social justice activist, but technically speaking, it's really nice that in Africa we actually have torchbearers like you. I really think to young girls in here, it's just about having the ability to challenge the status quo. For many years, we actually had our twins being killed in our society. We had albinos being killed in our society, but it took one person at a given time who managed to challenge the status quo to say this is wrong, let's do what is right. But then by that, it also took people like Kakenya from Kenya, who stood against her own culture, which was being turned into a vulture. So it really needs you as girls to actually make sure that you stand up and make sure that whatever you think is really important and is it really making any particular impact, that it will actually inevitably have some momentum and it will gain support. So I really think it's time that the African women actually become the tenants of, since they are the majority, that they reclaim their authority. I think these vagabonds in power will actually move a motion to more like listen to whatever the status quo might be at that particular given time, so that maybe we really do not want these amateur marriages in our particular society, particularly for the African instance, because there was a research that was done by Plan International that actually showed that 60% of young girls in Africa really has tendency of being moved to something that is not meaningful to what they want. So I think it's about you standing up for what you believe in. I think we can get there. Thank you.
I hope everyone understood that. Stand up for your right, I believe is what he was trying to say. I'll just support what he's saying. My brother here is saying with a tweet from a guy called Ashton Dewey. He says, how do we tackle the issue of underage girls being married off? Can young girls push back? And I guess what he's suggesting is the young girls can push back. There's another comment here that reads, where we Kakenya, thank you. You have shown the way and your story is inspiring what girls can do to achieve the same in a different context. There's another one here, some advice. Parents, take time, and the word talk is in capital letters. Parents, take time to talk to your children. You will be amazed. Any other questions? There's a question here in the back.
Thank you. My name is Faith Dube and I'm from World Education. Thank you very much for your time and chatting with us and enlightening us. I wanted to follow up on Tembi's comment on how to work with the custodians of the culture. I would have loved to hear some more examples of how you got a man who is steeped in his ways to actually agree, for example, to come to one of your education sessions. How do you get that buy-in? And then a second question that I wanted to ask you is, out of curiosity, have you had any instances of children themselves acting? Just, for example, from a child participation perspective, have you had any instances, or do you, in your own work, encourage child participation in your cause?
Thank you. How do I get the custodians? I think when we started the school, they were part of it. It's not, I didn't go and say I'm building a school and that's the school. I went to them and I said, I want to build a school. How can you help me? They donated land. That is their school. They are part of it. And as we continued with school, there are programs whenever I have talks. Nowadays they use me as, if they need a crowd, they use me. Because it's, I really take time to talk to people and to listen to them and to, you know, if somebody is against something, I actually engage them in the conversation because I want to hear what they have to say. But we activists, sometimes we shy off. When we have meetings, we say, oh, those people don't like what we do. Actually, we need to bring those people that don't like what we do to our meetings to listen to us, and so that we can also listen to them. So I have meetings with men, I have meetings with mothers, I have, you know, sometimes I'm just talking and talking and talking, but it's very effective. Eventually when you're trying to achieve something, they will listen to you. You're not imposing on them, but they are part of it. It's very important, especially if I want to start something, I always have to go to the chief first. And I talk to him, it will take an hour, and it's a long process, but I know I will achieve what I want in the end. So you have to know how to, you know, it doesn't take, like, I do some other things like, they always say, did you ever really go to America? You know, you just walk on the street like everybody. Yes, it's okay. It doesn't, I'm not changed by that. When you talk about, do I encourage my girls? Oh my goodness. I think I'm looking forward to when they finish, not even just when they finish university, because then I know the whole world will be changed, but the things they do, they amaze me. When you give children space, when you give them time, we do in some of our meetings, some of our trainings, we do martial arts called karate for self-defense. And now the older girls are teaching the younger girls, and the other ones are teaching the ones in the village. We have the girls in our schools, we always do the things of the Day of the Girl. They're the ones who are out there standing up for their rights. They say poems. They're very, very, very involved. Because that is the whole purpose. To me, it's not just to talk on their behalf, but them to speak up. I want them to speak. And in our leadership trainings, we actually teach them to speak. We have public speaking events for them, and they do it. Because our culture tells us to be quiet, to be proper. You don't raise hands, you don't just... No! When you come to my school, you'll be amazed. The girls can run, and they do all, and they jump rope, and they're girls, they're children. That's how we build them up. So yes, there's room for them to be participants in what we do.
Okay, my name is Joseph. I wanted to ask, you say women equals children in Kenya, like you say if you don't bear children, not the women. So my question is, what happens to, like, when you've been studying for like 27 years, then you discover that you cannot reproduce as a woman? Like, what happens to the community? If you cannot naturally bear children, what happens? And then you've been studying for like 30 years or 27 years, and you say then you don't bear children. How does the community see you, and what happens to your marriage, and like, how do people see you?
I hope I understood the question correctly though. He's asking,
I think Joseph was asking, you were saying that in Kenyan culture, being a woman equates the ability to have children. So you're saying if you get to be 27, 30 and you realize as a woman you're not able to have children, what happens to those women who cannot give birth to children?
First, when I'm speaking, there's nothing called Kenyan culture. I just want to make that clear. I am speaking pretty much of a community, the Maasai people. We have so many, here we have about 42 different tribes. So other communities have their own practices. So what I speak today is really what is from my own culture. And so it might not be called Kenya because it's big. And the other thing is, I don't think we want to tell the women that when you stay longer before you have children, you're not going to have children. I had children when I was 30 years, and women can have children until they're 45 or something like that. Yes, I understand from my biology class. So